what's been happening in pay-per-call in the last year and a half since we did that first podcast together?
There's always going to be publishers that are super aggressive and they ruin it for everybody. I think there's going to be a huge opportunity for consumer-initiated calls that are verified.
Just like the new FCC regulation around outbound, what's going to happen? Companies are going to buy less leads. Now they're going to buy more live calls. That's going to be the outcome.
Hey guys, I just want to give a quick shout outs to our sponsors over at Ringba for sponsoring this video. And also I get a lot of questions about where to start with pay-per-call. This is where I recommend you start. The pay-per-call revolution, written by the founder of Ringba, Adam Young himself, who was a big affiliate before he started this awesome call tracking software company. So yeah, this is exactly what I recommend if you're new to pay-per-call. I have a free course as well, which you can see in the description below this video. But yeah, let's get back to the content.
Like, this is John's podcast, not mine. Whatever we do is his problem.
Okay. Was this your idea? I feel like I'm in Love Island or something. And you're waiting for me.
All I know is we're filming this, and this is totally going in the video.
Oh, we are?
Of course.
Yeah.
You get the spy camera, remember?
How you doing?
Everyone, Carlos Corona.
All right, guys, we got two returning guests, Adam Young and Carlos Corona. Welcome back, guys.
Hey.
Carlos has been, you were one of my first podcast guests. Yeah. You might have been, one of you two were my first podcast guests.
I was supposed to be the first, and then Adam walked, and then he was like, wait, 1 second, can you wait? I'm like, yeah, no problem. Then you did Adam. then Bowski walked, and I was like, hey.
And then Bowski.
I'm like, yeah, sure. Times to hop in. Let's do it.
What's been happening in pay-per-call in the last year and a half since we did that first podcast together?
Compliance. A lot of compliance. And I would say it's a lot of, what do you call it? Like, I see a lot of, like, the smaller guys are just leaving the space and consolidating, right? And some of the bigger guys that know how to run the operations and the behind the scenes are doing better. And then, I don't know.
People
like the fly-by-nights are just like...
in the call center side? Or
the whole space in general.
It's generally what happens anytime there's regulation. We saw similar in Medicare. There are a lot of really big players in Medicare and a lot less smaller players in Medicare. It's still a massive opportunity, but it's not an easy win. You have to put a lot of effort in. You have to build a business. You have to pay attention. You have to have a team if you want to do anything big. It's not like, hey, I'm an affiliate, I'm going to sign up for a network and run Medicare calls. Like, that's not going to be a thing. CMS implemented all sorts of guidelines and approvals, and I think as far as insurance goes, that type of thing will continue to happen. And I think it's a really great thing. I do love affiliates. I was one for a long time. But at the same time, when this happens, it allows people to build really sustainable long-term businesses. And that's much more exciting, actually.
You've coached a lot of people. You've brought a lot of people personally into this space. What are you seeing that's different now with people coming in versus 2-3 years ago when you were focused also on bringing people in through like coaching directly?
I think lately we've been seeing a lot of experienced affiliates that discover pay-per-call, whether they were searching on YouTube or they read your book or, just happened, a friend talked about it. So I've seen a lot of that. I've seen a lot of guys that would do a lot of e-com and a lot of, black hat stuff, and they're now joining pay-per-call. So I'm seeing we're not necessarily catering to like newbies anymore, even though they're considered newbies in the sense that they're probably new to pay-per-call, but definitely not to affiliate marketing.
Super skilled with creatives, angles, direct response marketing.
Yes.
So would you say that a lot of that has to do regulations plus, like Adam's been making a big push with his book that came out, bigger presence with evangelizing paper call as a whole?
Yeah, I think pay-per call is trending, and it has been, but now more than ever. Like, I feel like when I got into space, like, I think it was like 2018 that I really got into pay-per call. It was not that popular. It was popular, but it wasn't as much as it is now, right? Like, I see now it's more like you know, a bigger thing that it was years.
When I first got introduced to you in 2021 by Paluzzi, I think on like an email intro, one of the first things he said, he does paper call. I was like, what's paper call? Like, I didn't even know what it was. I was new to lead gen, so let alone what paper call was.
I didn't know what it was either. I was just generating calls for a good friend of mine. And he was like, can you just Google to see if anybody will buy your calls? And I was like, wow, there's a whole world out there. I have no idea what it was.
You skipped the whole lead gen.
Before that, I was running, but for my own. Like, I've been running Google ads forever. I think my account is like 2007, 8. Because I stumbled into the book, like Perry Marshall. I don't know if you guys know him.
Oh, yeah.
So it was a PDF. And back then, I used to have this domain. I used to sell perfumes, like designer brands perfumes. I had a company in New York that used to drop ship them. This is like 2007, 2008.
Before drop shipping was drop shipping, like everyone knew.
I had no idea that it was called drop shipping either. You just knew that if I email him the order, whatever the person bought plus where it was going, he will ship it. So I'm like, amazing. So then I opened a logistic company. Then I opened a recording studio. And after that, I hit like a low in my life. Like, nothing was going the way that I wanted to. And I started working again. And this is funny because I pick up like a side hustle and then design studio here in Miami, like a local print shop. So they needed somebody that can put together a website and GMB listing or whatever. And I needed the money. So I'm like, hey, I'll take it. And there I meet, somebody that is a public adjuster. It was like, do you think you can make the phone ring for, restoration, stuff like that? I'm like, man, if you pay for the ads, I'll run them, And he did. And I ran them and got me back on my feet. And then he goes, you should sell these calls, like, to other adjusters, like not in Florida, but somewhere else. And that's when I came across eLocal and 33-mile radius. And that's like when, like, a few months later, then I get a call from, like, hey, you guys should, like, not you guys, like, you should look into this call tracking platform called Ringba. And I was like, huh? And they were like, yeah, call tracking. I'm like, well, we use like call analytics that you had to put in, like, I don't know if you ever seen that platform before.
It sounds messy.
It's, it's like a very basic.
Yeah.
You put in your Twilio API key.
Oh, jeez.
And
I'm out.
yeah, and then, you can create very, very basic call routing. But hey, to me at the time it worked because it was just selling to, like, a couple of people. And I discovered Ringbot and I was like, wow. And I go into, one of those Skype groups. And I started seeing that there's a bunch of people out there. And I was like, And I started doubting my marketing skills myself, right? That's why I told you earlier that I don't do good around people that do the same thing that I do. Because then I start, like, kind of like comparing myself. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to distract myself into what is it that you're doing. Whatever you're doing, I applaud you. I want you to win. But I really don't care about it. I care about what I'm doing, So when I start seeing all these people online and I see that they're, like doing numbers, I'm like, man, I can do these numbers easily. And then I started teaching other people and started my whole journey without knowing that I was documenting my journey. Because I will turn on Money Making Mondays every Monday.
You've been doing it for like 4 years.
I did it for a long time. And I did it because I was afraid of being in front of camera. Like, I hated recording myself because I have an accent. Like, people sometimes don't quite understand what it is that I'm saying. Like, I have to repeat myself and stuff like that. So like, how can I, force myself to don't feel afraid of being in front of people or talking in front of an audience? Well, I got to get in front of the camera and I got to speak. And how can I earn somebody trust if I'm transparent? If I show you what I'm doing, if I show you my ad account, the ad that I'm running, how I'm routing the calls, everything except for the buyer, then, chances are that you're going to decide for yourself if this guy is for real or not.
How has Adam's push to make pay-per-call become a household name in the online marketing space? Because you have Nutra, you have Ecom, you have Legion. Now you also have pay-per-call. It's on the table too. How has that directly impacted your business on the buyer side, and then even on, because you have a network on the publisher side too?
Well, we definitely get a lot of people that said, hey, I found you on YouTube after reading Adam's book, right? Because they discover what pay-per-call is. I'm assuming immediately they go into YouTube and they type in, pay-per-call. So there's a lot of videos about pay-per-call on YouTube, like tons of them. There's few videos showing you how to do it, right? So if you see some of my videos, they're pretty long. They're like an hour long, an hour and a half long, because they go.
Content.
You just throw it on the camera and go, man.
I don't know how to edit, so like.
It's funny you say that. My class I put out, no editing. Just like turn on the camera and whatever.
I don't know how to edit, so it's one take and one take only.
Dude, but if someone's going to sit there and watch the whole thing, like that's the perfect person to actually do it.
Like between YouTube and stuff that we do, like on a more private settings, I would say like it's well over 200 hours of content.
And that's not counting your course too, which
yeah,
units360.com, right?
Yeah, correct.
So check it out.
And by the way, those money-making Monday calls, I don't go every Monday. Monday's tough for me, but I've been to many of your calls. I try and make time for it. And like every time even I go, I'm fascinated by the interaction with the people and the conversations. And it's always been a great experience. And Carlos always lets me run my mouth too, which is fun.
Yeah. This is how I see it. The more that other people talk, the less that I have to talk. So it's great. I mean, you want to talk, go for it. But now, so now I'm doing Thursdays, right? And I got to tell you that I'm looking forward to tomorrow, to doing the call tomorrow, because now we have a lot more people that jump in. And I got to say that I not that I took the idea, but I kind of got the idea from Geek Out. It was the first time I go to Geek Out LA in 2022. I think you were there, right?
I was. Yeah. You were running these calls before then?
No, of what I'm doing now. The concept of what I'm doing. So I go to Geek Out, and it's the first time that I see the host sitting down, right? So that kind of like, I don't know, hit me, right? So I see James, he's sitting down. I'm like, this mofo is learning from everybody. He's just putting this together so he can pick everybody's brain. I'm like, this is genius. I have to do something like that. So now in my calls, I just bring in everybody, and I'm kind of like laying back and just let everybody like
moderate.
Correct. Moderate. And I'm like, wow. So now, I'm learning about stuff I had no clue about, that the people in the call were actually doing or capable of doing it.
When did you decide you wanted to move from a publisher to being a network? And why? Why did you choose to add that? Because you still run traffic too.
Yeah. I think that it just happened, right? Gradually. Because I think that first I was running most of the traffic myself, right? And then I came across Encore. I don't know if you know Encore from Flight Calls. And that was the first time that I really did like 7 figures with calls, right? Running a flight campaign. Then after that, I kind of was decided to like, hey, what if I started teaching people how to do exactly the same thing that I'm doing, right? And that's what kind of like, put me into it, because it was a transition from flight calls to Medicare. I know it sounds wild, right? So I did flights all by myself. It did pretty well. And then we went to a lunch. I don't know if you know, obviously, Bill Somerville and Ron Hart. So we go to a lunch in the old Malibu farm in the Eden Rock. And Bill says, like, hey, you guys should run Medicare. Ron and myself look at each other like, Medicare, like, sure, I'll run Medicare, right? And then I was like, whoa, this is sweet. It was pretty good. It was amazing. So during that transition, it's like, you know what? If I can teach other people how to do exactly the same thing that I'm doing, right? Then I become the network. I'll make my margin, of course, right? And provide everybody a solution that they're looking for. Once they're looking to learn how to do this thing. Two, they're looking for the first buyer, which is the hardest thing to get, right? Your first buyer. And the third, they're looking for some type of support, some type of community that they can go back to. They have questions, if they face, any obstacles and stuff like that. So if I can provide that, like, that will be like a good foundation to building, an empire, pretty much, right? Then we started doing it slowly. That's how I transitioned from one thing to another. Like, I wasn't set on like becoming a network, or I wasn't set on like having a company and having staff, because that's like one of the hardest things that you can possibly do is lead a team, right? To be a good leader, you have to be incredibly hard on yourself, right? Because you lead by example. So, and you have all this lives in your hands. So whatever decision you make doesn't only affect you, but affect whoever works for you, their families, and so on, right? So it's not a easy role to do, right? I would much rather be a salesman than be the CEO of a company, right? So once you step up, because you have no choices, what you have to do, your natural progression, then you have to do it. You have to learn and, develop yourself and how to become a better leader and how to guide your team and how to operate more corporate, even if corporate is not your cup of tea, but you have to if you want to,
What's been your biggest challenge the last year, let's say, running the network?
Challenge has been, I want to say that the biggest challenge has been distribution, right? Because when you run a network, there's a lot of stuff that you got to look out for, especially fraud, and why not? So distribution is like I can do an excellent job in bringing a buyer, but if somebody sends a call that is uncompliant and it gets to that buyer, then all the work that I put on, it just went down the drain, right? Right? So it's pretty hard to keep a clean face unless you run a tight ship, right?
But even still, there's still risk.
Yeah. So you have to go through that to learn how to mitigate that stuff and to learn how to, do better, I guess. So it was like, all right, instead of just focusing on just being a network where we can assign you a DID and you can start sending calls right away, like, we need to make a shift to like own and operate it, right? So we can control the website where the phone call is originated from.
So you're going deeper with the call center.
Not just with the call center, but with the buyer, whoever our partners that we're selling calls to, then I can pretty much guarantee the authenticity of the call, right? So went to our website. There's a number pool associated with that. There's other tracking methods in there, right? And I can be like, look, this call came from right here. And I can show the receipts, quote unquote. So that's the biggest push right there. And being like own and operate it. So we, mitigate risk.
Because you control at least another
Correct.
part.
And I love it because when when I'm in a Zoom call with a potential partner, buyer, whatever it is, then I just go to Google Analytics and I look up the domain. Be like, look, I'm sending you calls from this domain. Here's analytics. You can see the traffic where people are coming from. Boom, boom. Hold on 1 second. I log into Ringba. Here's the calls originating. You see this? This is a number pool.
All matching.
And everything is matching. So after I do my, sing and dance, then they're like, okay, let's do it.
Adam, what would you say are the common themes you've seen with someone like Carlos, who's had success going from just publisher to network, full operation with other affiliates that have done the same thing?
Well, what I think is interesting about what Carlos has done is that he takes the time to teach others how to be successful, which, as he said, is a very, and I don't want this to come off the wrong way, but a very selfish endeavor, just like writing my book, right? Like, I receive a huge amount of personal fulfillment from helping others be successful. Like, that's the selfish part of it. And that's what I see in Carlos. It's not the money. It's not the, hey, I'm going to get people to run calls to my network. It's like, I want to do something that's bigger than myself. And so what comes with what he's done is not only financial results related to helping others, but, he creates this community and people follow him and he makes connections that, some of which become friends. And it's really a cool thing to watch. It's really a hard thing to do, to put yourself out there. And then you don't like being on camera. I'm an introvert. Like, I didn't want to film my first 22-hour class and put it on the internet. I was like, this is nuts. I don't want to do this. This isn't me. But once I realized how it can impact other people, then I was like, all right, I just got to get over it like you did and do that. And so I really respect the journey he goes on. He shares selflessly with other people what he's doing and how he's doing it. And I have customers that started with Carlos and are now very successful. And he brought them in and taught them some things. And then they, figured it out and grew a business. And it's super cool to see. And I'm grateful to be a part of it. And I wish more people did that. At the same time, it's a lot of people feel the same way we do, and they don't want to put themselves out there, and they're really scared about talking about what they're doing because they're like, I don't want to create competition or whatever. And I'm like, we're talking about the insurance industry. Like, are you running $1 billion worth of traffic? Like, how much are we talking here? Like, who's going to peel it off? Like, oh, okay, right. You did like $627,000 last year. Okay. Like, what exactly, like the pie is pretty big, right? Like, we track billions of dollars a quarter. And so if you're scared of competitors, my question is like, where are you at 10 figures yet? Like, where are you at? And what I find is the people that are the most successful are the ones that are the most open about what they're doing, because they realize that people aren't going to put in the same amount of work or effort or do it the same way or see their vision clearly. And so I really love what Carlos does. And that's why I try my best, like my schedule's crazy, but I try my best to like hop in to his calls for no other reason whatsoever, but to hope to add value to his community, actually. And I do, I try to do that. And, I think it's like the coolest thing. And I understand it a little differently because I do similar things. Yeah. Like we have a community and I work in it. And, that's something that's been really rare in performance marketing. Most people haven't done that except for financial ends, right? You have people who host events or do training events and they have some communities and whatever, but their end goal is to make money from the community, to charge rent on the community and the events. And so when that happens, there's a conflict of interest around the giving and the training and the why they're doing it. Carlos has done it differently. He has a back end. He has his unique 360. He has unique media with the network. And so his motivation around the community can be pure because that's not where he makes his money. He hopes to do business with those people, but he has to earn their trust first. And so if you're running an event or doing something like that and it's for the revenue from the event, it gets diluted and you have a limited lifetime the people in it. But in Carlos's case, it's just totally different because it's so obvious that he's there to just like help people because it's cool. And if he makes some money off of it, great. If not, great. In the end, he makes money off of it because
Yeah, thanks. It's so true because we make money from the pay per call side. Like, their community's a big expense to us.
costs a fortune.
Right. But and it's funny because in most of my calls, people that are new to them, they're expecting for me to pitch them something at the end. And at the end, it's like, all right, I got to go. Bye. Next week. Right. Good luck. So they're expecting for me to sell them something. I'm like, I have nothing to sell you. Like, if you want to learn for free, go to my YouTube. There's bunch of stuff you can, search up. You're going to need a landing page and stuff like that. So like, we have Unique 360, like, but you can also go to high level and do it yourself. Like, I really
you want to
don't
build
care.
it from scratch.
You're going to need one, like, whatever it is, you're going to need it. And that's the end goal there is to help other people, have a meaningful impact in their life and change it in somehow, some way. Like, I get messages from people saying, you know what, I paid off my mortgage, or I bought my mom a house, or I paid off my student loans, or, I made X amount of money. Whatever might be the case, I'm like, wow, that's amazing because I don't remember what I did last, Friday night, to give you an example. But whatever it is that I chose to share in that moment had a powerful impact on somebody's life. And that's really what it means to me, right? It's not like I want to sell you a course or anything like that. Like, I could care less about that.
Yeah.
If you take pay-per call serious and you really jump in the game, then I want to play. It's like basketball, right? If, hey, you have the skills of LeBron, then I definitely want to play with you, right? That's how I see it. So if guys that came in that are doing twice, triple the revenue or even more than I'm doing, right? And I love that. I love it that they can think differently and they can take their business to the level, beyond.
Learn from them.
Right? So now I'm like, let me pick your brain. Let's reverse engineer what happened or how you got there. I love every moment of it. To me, it's a game, and I'm a diehard competitive person.
We were thinking about like our organizations too as teams, not families. And we just said it.
Oh yeah. I definitely see them as team members because your family member, you can't kick them out.
That's literally what we said.
We're definitely a team, and I'll be the first one to bench you and trade you if you're not performing,
So with ACA being a big vertical for all of us,
Yeah.
what with the compliance changes the last few months and even more recently, like and it starts Friday officially, right?
Yeah.
First. What do you predict based on what you've seen the last 3 to 4 weeks of incoming calls? I want to hear from both of you on this.
Sure. I can tell you what I see from my side, right? I see a bunch of people that, can I curse in this or not really? Not really?
Yeah,
All right.
go for it.
That don't give two Fs or two fucks about anything and they just want to make a quick buck. And they will run like super aggressive ads that, end up in complaints and then the bureaus of departments in the United States that start regulating and stuff like that, right? So is it going to happen this time around? Of course, without a doubt. We're going to see super aggressive ads that sometimes are even misleading the consumer altogether because they want a financial reward, right? They want to get paid for that. They want to have as many billable calls. And therefore, you're going to see compliance and regulation to stop that, right? So then I see other companies that are more, understanding and reasonable, and they can have a more realistic CPA and work together, right? But what I'm trying to say is that there's always going to be publishers that are super aggressive and they ruin it for everybody. And then there's going to be publishers that understand the business and they don't see it like, a quick money grab. Like this is the only, OEP that we're going to see in our life, right? Like,
well, they're only ruining it for the people who aren't doing it correctly.
correct.
And I don't necessarily find that a bad thing. Similar things happened in Medicare, and it was a really positive outcome. And for me, I would rather see a better outcome for consumers, because that means that people in our industry involved in these spaces can think for the long term instead of like, how am I going to make this ad work for the next 2 weeks? And in Medicare, we saw this, and there are a lot of companies that are really successful. There's a lot less publishers now. Like a lot of the, easy money publishers then get washed right out because they can't operate anymore. And then what we see at Ringba is a smaller number of much larger companies grow. Consolidation to do that. And I think what happened in ACA is the right thing. I don't have any issues with the regulation. I think that, obviously it causes volume to go down across the board. So I'm financially incentivized to have my opinion. Like my opinion should be like, oh, this is terrible. It's not. No. I want the regulation so that the good people in our space can do a great job so that consumers are happy. And then we have great long-term partnerships with these companies and they continue to grow and thrive. And that's really the way. And to your point, like, yes, a bunch of publishers end up ruining this type of thing. But in the long run, I think it's really, really beneficial. Just like the new FCC regulation around outbound, which a lot of people are, justifiably upset about. A lot of people's businesses are selling data and age data and brokering data. And, it's going to affect a big portion of the industry. But my phone stopped ringing. Like I used to get more than 50 unsolicited calls a day. I don't opt into anything. And now I get 4 or 5. And that's exciting to me because like soon I'll be able to answer my phone again. And I haven't for the last couple of years. And I think that most consumers were really not happy about that. And a lot of people in the industry were like, oh, this is bad. Business is going to be bad. But anytime there's regulation or a massive shift in the industry, it creates a lot of opportunity. And there will be losers, no doubt. Like some people won't adapt. They'll, maybe be like, I'm a victim. My company's gone. Rah, like, what do we do? Instead, they should be thinking like, all right, there's new regulations. What's going to happen? Companies are going to buy less leads. Now they're going to buy more live calls. That's going to be the outcome. And so my question is like, with ACA and the regulation, cool. How do I look at the regulation and do a great job and then figure out clever ways to generate calls that are compliant that no one else is doing and then sell those to the buyers? Like, great. Everyone's screwed. Love it. Like, what are the rules? And then go like we all do, like a good affiliate does, and goes, all right, well, those are the rules. I can follow these rules and do this interesting thing over here. Now I have an arbitrage. Like, that's the whole name of the game. And so the people who complain about this are the ones who have a hard time adapting. I did this for almost 15 years. It was a lot of fun. It was really hard. I hated when these things happened, right? But as I got older in that space, I realized that I actually really like when these things happen because I already know, like, I'm going to work on figuring it out. And so I think the outcome of this is going to be really beneficial for the industry. I think a lot of people are going to make a lot of money, those that see it through. And people are going to build businesses that are sustainable, that they can sell. Like, we're going to see more exit stories in our industry. I can all but guarantee that based on the conversations I have with people, and they're going to be big. And I'm really excited about that, right? Like, I want my friends to make tens or hundreds of millions of dollars. Like, that's awesome. Like, I can't tell you how exciting that'll be for me. And then on the, the other FCC thing on the outbound, I think it's going to be amazing for consumers. And I think guys like Carlos are going to make a shitload of money because of the changes. Because he's going to go, all right, no more data. I can make the phones ring. Yeah. He's like, oh, realtors need me now? Great. Like, what? whatever. Like, it doesn't matter. So if you approach these things with a positive attitude and just start asking the right questions, like, how is this an opportunity to make money? Like, just let go the pain or the whatever it is, right? Just like, how is this an opportunity to make money? How do these rules apply to what I'm doing today? And then, like, well, what could I do with the rules? Like, how could the rules actually benefit what I'm doing? And by asking those questions and really thinking about it, you'll find all sorts of opportunities. I mean, I think a lot of the people who are upset about it just don't have the motivation to ask the questions and innovate. But if they would, and some people will, like, there's going to be huge winners with this. Huge winners.
Would you say, in theory, that if there's less people dialing on the same lead because age data is dead next year for sharing, would that also increase the lifetime value of the customer because there's less people going after the same customer unless that customer's doing live inbound calls? And would that then result in higher payouts or like a CPA model shift for verticals like ACA? Like, are they going to increase price points to attract more inbound traffic?
Well,
That's clean and not aggressive as well.
well, I mean,
You can't. But
look, like, here's the thing. The data lead portion, like, a huge amount of the call center capacity is allocated to outbound. And that will change. And they don't want to, like, the infrastructure is expensive. Like, it's just not cheap to run a gigantic call center of Americans who are licensed in insurance. Like,
Yeah.
It's really expensive. And so they're not going to want to fire these folks. And these folks are going to be more excited about taking an inbound call, right? Like, dialing out sucks. It's not fun. People yell at you. You're like, just, inbound call is totally different. These people are like, actually want to talk to you. And so you don't get burnt out. The agents like it more. And I don't necessarily know if the price of an inbound call will go up, but what you will see is on the data leads, a consumer has to opt in to each person that's going to call them affirmatively. You can't pre-check the boxes. It's like 2, 3, 4, like, you're never going to get them to opt into 8, right? So maybe you get 1, maybe you get 2. And so the cost to generate those leads is going to skyrocket because you can't resell them. You can't sell them 2 months later. They're exclusive, but they're not. And so these companies that are buying the leads are going to have to pay more, and they're slowly going to come to parity with the cost of a call. And so the question's going to be, does the buyer want to buy 2 leads that they may or may not talk to? They may or may not get on the phone, right? I don't think their connection rate with the consumer is going to, like, go up by an exponential amount. Like, people still don't want to answer the phone.
Even if they're getting less calls.
Even if they're getting less calls. Just because I'm getting less calls doesn't mean I'm answering them all, right? And so if I'm the call center and I'm like, well, I got to pay $50 for a phone call and it converts at 40% because it's an inbound, or I got to pay $50 for 2 leads and I got a 40% connection rate and that converts at 12%. What does the math tell me to do? And that's going to be the interesting question. What does the math tell you to do? And if the cost of leads goes up drastically and the connection rate doesn't get that much better to match it, then you're going to have these people paying significantly more money to acquire the leads, and they're going to make less money on them. And then the cost of the media to generate the leads is going to go way up because you can't sell them a bunch of times. And so people are going to be looking for an alternative. The best case in any scenario for a business is to have a consumer call them, right, because they actually want to buy something.
it's true. I don't think the price is going to go up. I think that what Adam said is valid in the sense that business want consumers calling them instead of them calling consumers. But the reason why I'm saying that I don't think the price is going to go up is because the business model behind it does not support it. Right.
Lifetime value of the customer
Correct.
doesn't necessarily increase.
So
Unless it's ACA where they're stickier. Right? They're less.
even if it doesn't matter if it's ACA, auto insurance, Medicare, they all have an LTV. In the case of ACA, you're lucky to be at the 250 to 350 with bonuses for a 12-month.
You think that's even going to be the case after the regulations that came this year?
Whatever regulation it is, that's how much the carriers are paying. So you can regulate all you want, but if United and Aetna and Blue Cross are paying that, they're paying that. So the
And those payouts are regulated too.
correct. So it's not going to be able to support it.
Yeah.
Now, I think there's going to be a huge opportunity for consumer-initiated calls that are verified. I think that's going to be...
So it's like a transfer? Like it...
Kind of, but without the outbound dialing.
And inbound to transfer.
Correct.
So you feed through a middle call center or sales or...
You have a consumer-initiated phone call from search or social, right?
Or anywhere.
Anywhere, native, you name it. Whatever they're using, as long as the consumer initiated the call, right? But instead of selling that call directly to the end buyer, right? Because there's nothing special about my call, right? But if the call now goes through a call center that will verify that the people is qualified for whatever it is that they're calling for, right? Mortgage, insurance, ACA, auto, you name it. Their acquisition cost is going to drop, right? Because it's a better quality prospect. So I think that could be a huge play for some call centers to not completely go out of business, but instead change to a verifying mentality.
Like a value add on the chain. Yeah.
I would actually state that that's probably the largest opportunity in pay-per-call presently. And the reason for that is the FCC has said is if I call you, it's like walking into a convenience store. You can do whatever, right? Like the consumer's choosing to call you. And so if you're generating an inbound that goes directly to an insurance company, there has to be a certain amount of consumer intent and quality for them to close the lead, which means you have to buy premium ad placement and traffic, and you have to focus on generating the call specifically for what that end agent is going to be selling.
Right.
This is a much more expensive proposition. Now, if you have a transfer center like Carlos is talking about, and you do an inbound to a transfer, now I can go run all different types of ads and angles. And I'm not even suggesting aggressive here, right? I just have a lot more flexibility in where I can buy media and buy traffic and then filter it, right? And so if I'm going somewhere where I don't have a lot of demographic targeting, for instance, right now, if it's going directly to a buyer, it doesn't work because the end buyer is not going to be happy if you send them a bunch of 30-year-olds for Medicare. Like They're just like, no. But if you have a traffic source and there's like 1,000 traffic sources where you don't have demographic information that no one is buying.
Super broad traffic.
Super broad display networks, you name it. And you send unqualified traffic that's pennies on the dollar into your own call center and then ask them questions and then transfer them with the demographic information you've now collected, whether it be from something like instant caller profiles or talking to them, combination thereof. Now you have a really high value quality call that you've paid a low amount of ad dollars to generate, a reasonable amount on the phone to qualify, right? Because if you're qualifying, let's say 1 in 5, and you're at a minute 20 a piece, you're talking 7 minutes of talk time or whatever it is. That's not that expensive. You have an agent, figure $20 an hour overhead, or what now you've got your ad cost plus $6 or whatever it is to get the super qualified call. Your margins might even be better. And then in this circumstance, you have your diamond in the rough, which is if they don't qualify and it's a 39-year-old for whatever Medicare, whatever it is, now you can downsell them. Hey, you were calling about insurance, but this was for Medicare. Like, why are you calling? And they're like, oh, well, I needed something. And they're like, cool. Well, you have these 5 other outlets that you can then monetize it. So you're basically you can take lower quality traffic. What I mean by that is unqualified, broader, non-demographic, organized.
survey.
Exactly. Or I'm targeting people 65 plus on Facebook, or $90 a click keywords or something, right? Now you're like, okay, well, where can I get 20-cent keywords on Google? Use a clever hook, get them on the phone interested in insurance, not in anything specific, and then qualify and sell the call. And if it's home insurance, then you're like, well, what about a home warranty? Right? And you can't do this on outbound anymore. You cannot sell, with the new FCC regulations, someone who called for home insurance like gutter repair. Like, it's not allowed
on outbound.
On outbound.
Even if you have opt-in first party.
If you have opt-in first party. But on inbound, you can't. It's like you walk into a convenience store, they can sell you whatever they want. It's there. You either take it or leave it. You decided to call. You are not being interrupted and sold to. And so that's what the FCC has stated. Now, just to caveat this, I am not a lawyer. Get your own lawyer. Get your own legal advice. Right?
Not that I know of.
Yeah. So, but like this is what I have gathered from my position on the Reach board, from talking to attorneys, customers, whatever. And I actually think this is the largest opportunity.
I never even thought about this. It makes complete sense.
It allows you to be more creative too, because from a media buyer point of view, like I can run an ad that is super broad and super generic, like, have you claim your 2025 benefits. That's extremely generic, right? And then I can get you on the phone and then find out what benefits are available for you, right? Whether it's a auto insurance benefit, whether it's a ACA benefit, a home service benefit. I mean, there's tons of benefits. Like, you have programs for home services like PACE in Florida that will help you with your roof, your doors, your windows, your air conditioning. You have Medicare Advantage plans that have flex spending cards, OTC cards, and other benefits. Same thing with ACA. As auto insurance for those that don't drive that much. There's tons of benefits out there, but my ad doesn't have to be specific. Like, I don't have to compete in auto insurance. I don't have to compete in ACA. I can just be super broad, let that consumer call the hotline, have an agent that is a non-licensed agent, because it's not pitching any product. It's just a phone agent.
Customer service rep.
Be like, hey, how can we help you today? Right? Well, I'm calling because I saw an ad that says benefit. Okay, great. Let me ask you simple questions. Do you have a car? Do you have auto insurance? Where do you live? Do you rent? Do you own? And then have a natural conversation with the customer, and then find out what benefits they might qualify for. Send that to the appropriate person. It's all consumer initiated, and at a lot less cost than it will be for me to run, a
Medicare
head-on Medicare and deal with the Medicare providers.
Yeah.
Correct.
And this is going to be a much more sustainable business for people that want to evolve from independent media buying to something like this, because you're adding a moat, which is a layer of work
that most won't do.
And the purpose of that is to add your own secret sauce. And so if you can create a brand for yourself and a process, and then brand this product, and then, document it, and then show it to buyers and be like, hey, no, we're not like those other affiliates. Like here's our process. Here's how we can validate it for you. Like Ringba's number pools, for instance, have been fingerprinting our users since 2016. And so you literally can offer to the buyer, like, hey, we buy our own media, and I can prove to you on every single phone call what website it came from and that it was consumer initiated, right? Like, this has been built into Ringba since 2016. And you can just do that. And now they can see, okay, it's all inbounds. They got an audit trail. And you show them the qualification process. You're not like everyone else now. You have a unique product offering. You have a real product, right? Someone who's just generating phone calls and selling to a buyer and doing no treatment of those phone calls doesn't have a real product. They have a commodity. They're selling gold. The price of gold is the price of gold, right? Whatever the math is, the math is. And if someone else comes along with a slightly lower price of gold, or faster delivery, or whatever it is, like, you buy the gold from the other person. There's nothing to it. Like, gold is gold. The calls are the calls. If they're coming for Medicare, for instance, if they're coming from CMS-approved ads that have SMIDs, it's just a commodity, right? The only question is, did it come from Facebook or TV? Cool, here's the price, right? But for something like this, you have a unique product offering. You can set the price. You can have a margin that no one understands because you are adding a layer of processing to the product, right? Like you're taking the gold, you're melting it, you're turning it into your own design, and then you're selling that as a piece of jewelry, which is now much more valuable than the gold. Yeah. And so that's really how people should be thinking about calls. If you do a lot of really cool stuff with calls, like Carlos even teaches you to do AI stuff with the voice, you can create crazy call flows. Like some of the call flows I see are just outrageous. And that is your proprietary knowledge. Like that's the trade secret that allows you to turn your bought a call into a buyer into something unique that is your own. And it's funny because a lot of media buyers do that, but then they don't document why their stuff's better. And so they're not able to actually capitalize on the fact that they've created these things.
What other arbitrage like this do you both see for pay-per-call was with these new regulations coming?
I mean, I think of pay-per-call holistically across like all verticals. And so I think there's an endless opportunity in the space. It just depends on what you're good at and what type of work you want to do. Like if you're a really great organizer, then having 100 independent buyers is a great idea. Like go find 100 pest control companies and like create your own network of calls and buy calls from other people at 50% margin. Like you did the work, you own it, you do it. And then there's stuff like this. But the key here is in all examples I would give you of how to be successful or where to make the real money or build the real business, none of them are buying media and selling a call to a buyer. Because anyone can copy it. Like that can go away. Someone that gets paid more than you can outspend you.
Or if CPM costs go up, you're out of business.
You're out of business. Or someone can just steal your ad, do the exact same thing. There's no way to defend against it. But if they steal your ad and like your calls are going to a call center with crazy call flow and specialized and downsells, like this whole process that no one can see, steal the ads all you want. Can't do anything with it. Yeah, I'm not going to take your calls. You know? Yeah.
A lot of crazy stuff happens.
What's something cool you've seen or you don't mind sharing that maybe you built, like unique like this?
I think that, like AI voice agents are becoming more and more popular.
Vappy, I know you shared that with me.
Yeah, we tested Vappy for a while. We actually tested quite a few of them. And I'm the type of guy that I will, if you give me like access to a tool or a software, I don't know why, but my whole mission is to try to break it. Right?
Thanks, Carlos.
I just, if I can't break this thing, then I like it, But if I find like a bug or something, like, to me, it's like a turn off, right? Or if I, I don't.
You want to turn Carlos on?
I don't know why I'm like that, and but I like to log into like whatever dashboard it is, and then I'm like, all right, let's push this to the limit. So I did it with that company, and it broke. So I moved on.
Zappy's done. So
I moved it. It couldn't handle it, and I was sending like quite a few amount of calls, and I was like, this is not going to work. And then I learned a lot from that test that I did, and what I learned is that first you have to let the consumer know that it's an AI answering. Like, don't try to fool the consumer and be like, well, this doesn't sound human-like. It sounds robotic. It's supposed to sound robotic. It's AI, right? So let the consumer know once the phone comes in, like, hey, I'm an AI agent like Alexa, okay? So relax. I'm going to pre-qualify you. And two, you have to try to keep the conversation short. Like, don't go past 2-3 minutes because the memory for a lot of those voice agents is not there yet. And they will start hallucinating and giving inaccurate.
Saying some weird stuff.
Yeah, giving stuff that it can hinder your results, right?
Yeah.
So But if you ask him to perform like very simple tasks, like what's your zip code, what's your first name, what's your last name, you know, simple stuff like that, then it will perform quite well. So I think that there is a big opportunity there, right? So I don't know. I'm just hopeful that it will improve as we go.
What are you both most excited about with pay per call in the near future?
Yeah.
Look at you too.
A lot of fun stuff.
I think what I'm most excited about is the progress and results we've been able to achieve in evangelizing the industry and just growing the industry. And anytime you do anything like that, you get some hate. And I look at that and accept it as doing the right thing. Because you're like, do you bring more people in? Because Adam's going to sell 1 million copies of his book. And I will. I mean, great. It's going to ruin my opportunity and whatever. I would look at it and go, oh, shit, 1,000 people are going to come into the industry? Like, they're going to need to learn stuff. They're going to need to run calls. Like, we should buy calls from them. Like, we should do something. Like, how can we create more connections and work with more people and do more things? And, what we're doing here, and the focus of it is how do we make the pie bigger, right? And when the pie is bigger, more people get to eat. It doesn't take away from anyone else. I think if this were like Nutra or something, where you're like, all right, the guy can take 1,000 sales a day and that's the end of it. Like, it's just not possible to do more, right? Cool. Pay-per-call, on the other hand, is essentially an endless opportunity. It's like every business that sets an appointment or sells over the phone is a business that can buy a phone call. And you're talking about trillions of dollars. And so how's anyone taken anything from anyone? Like, this is probably the largest opportunity that performance marketing has ever seen. And the thing I'm most excited about is I'm making a lot of progress getting people to understand that. And once they understand it, man, people they're smart. They come in and do it. And, I'm going to give you an example from Carlos here. Like, Carlos has a bunch of students that work with him and will sell him calls and are involved in the space. At some point in their progression, they may decide to grow their business, and they don't do business with Carlos at that point. I don't think he holds any ill will towards these people.
I tell them.
Yeah, they're still your friends.
I tell them, don't make a mistake of having me as your only buyer. That will be a huge mistake.
You told me that.
Right?
Yeah.
I just want to be one of them. And like a restaurant, I don't expect you to come back every week. But if you ever want to come back, our menu's there. Yeah. It's I do not hold any grudge. Instead, I applaud you. I'm like, go for it. Because at the end of the day, we are doing also our own media buying and our own business. So it's we're not fully dependent on outside traffic, But I want people to grow. I want people to get more buyers. And I want more people to know about pay-per-call, because I see it like, to give you like a very like simple comparison, I'm pretty sure like before our era, before our age, somebody had to go out there and serve vacuum cleaners, like explain to you what a vacuum cleaner was, right? Or even a microwave or a refrigerator.
Or a cell phone.
Or a cell phone, right? So that's how I see it with pay-per-call. Like, people don't know what it is, and some people choose to work very hard in order to make a living, which, by all means. But do you know about pay-per-call? Because you should look into it. Just like I was telling the operation manager today, trying to cut us off, right? So I see it like, hey, everybody should be doing that. And now with the new FCC regulation and outbound possibly, if not suffering a lot, I think there's going to be more executive and more interns and more assistants turning into their favorite search engine and looking for other lead sources. And I think a lot of them are going to discover, inbound calls, and then they're going to discover pay-per-call, and they're going to add it into their marketing budgets, and why not?
They're going to have to with the lead changes.
Correct.
It's going to happen.
So I think it's only going to be, getting bigger and bigger. I think paper call can pretty much apply to 99% of the businesses out there
That are not micro ticket.
Correct.
Yeah.
Like you wouldn't do it for I don't know, a restaurant.
Tacos.
Yeah, right. It's not gonna work.
Depends on the city, but yeah.
Yeah, maybe in Miami. A piece of sushi here is like $90. So
Maybe service charges included, even at takeouts.
yeah, I know. Oh my God, don't get me started on that. But to his point, I think if your goal is to if you're not thinking long term, you're not thinking big, then you're concerned about these things. If you are thinking big and you have a different long-term vision, you're not worried about it. Like the guy who works with Carlos then goes, opens his own company. Next thing you know, he's got an insurance agency, calls Carlos back, and it's like, yo, can you help me drive some traffic? Or,
It's funny because it actually happened.
same thing with me, cool, do whatever you want to do. I don't care. And great. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. If you have an overarching larger vision where you understand what we're talking about here, then you're not worried about it. And paper call's not as easy as just running a Nutra campaign. You have to really think it through, and it's more complex. But that's why you can build a business that gets $100 million go-to.
Not just a campaign.
Yeah, exactly. I have a pile of $100 million awards in my living room. Not one. I have a pile. And so it's possible. I don't know anyone else that's running affiliate campaigns that aren't in pay per call that are slamming 9 figures of revenue, not at good margins, And so if that's possible and you're not making 9 figures in revenue in pay per call, then you have a long way to go. And some new people that come into the space are not going to eat your lunch. There's enough opportunity. And that's the most exciting thing about it. And so I don't know. I think a fear-based response is just never a winner.
Yeah. If the mentality is scarcity, I'm not going to tell you what I'm doing because I don't want to create competition. I don't know. I think that's just being naive.
Yeah. An abundant mindset gets you
Correct.
much, much farther. I mean, just think about it. I didn't even charge for my course. I probably could have made $1 million.
Yeah.
Easy, right? And the thing is now, though, so many people go through it and they know me and they come talk to me and a lot become customers. And, in the end, I win. And so thinking long term really changes that. We lose money on every book. You didn't make any money on a book. Get out of here. It costs 6 figures to produce the book. We will never make our money back on the book. But what will happen is some guy like Carlos will read the book. And he will show up at my doorstep. He will use Ringba. He will go to the trade shows, or she. And they will start to hire people. They will build a business. And the next thing you know, some guy's going to be like, yeah, man, I read your book 2 years ago. We're running 19,000 calls a day now. I really appreciate you. Thanks. And that guy's life gets changed. And I don't know what outcome's going to happen. When we do these things he does, we don't know what the outcomes are going to happen. You can't even really track it. But that's that. And this would never happen in affiliate marketing, but in pay per call, it does. It's you just literally put it out there in the wind and wait. And then eventually it comes back. Yeah. The abundance mindset is just a much happier place to live in life.
I think so. I think it's the way to go. And I think it makes you better too, in the sense of comparing it to sports, right? Michael Jordan, right? Super competitive, probably greatest basketball player, right? So imagine if he didn't want to play with anybody or didn't want to show anybody what he was doing, right? Him showing up and showing his teammates what he's doing makes him better.
Made the whole league better.
My whole league better.
Yeah.
I think me showing you my campaigns and the ads that I'm running, it's stupid of me, but it makes me better because I just lost the competitive edge. You now have to go back into the drawing room and be like, how can I outdo myself? And it's not I'm doing this once a year. I'm doing this constantly every week. So every week I'm like, how can I, do it better? Like, how can I step back and look at the greater picture? Because when everybody's running in one direction, I'm asking why. Before I even run to the other, I'm asking, why are they running that way? So trying to find ways that are, that will make you better. So sharing what you know ultimately makes you better.
If both of you had to start over in pay per call today with all your skill sets, connections, everything, but you couldn't run the typical ACA, Medicare, home services, and you had to create a new vertical, where would you start?
I couldn't run ACA, Medicare stuff.
Can't run the typical verticals everyone runs.
I would love to build a pet insurance.
Pet insurance. That'd be cool. How would you do it? What are the 3 to 5 main initial steps you would take?
First thing is I will start to research the market to identify the big players, franchises, and any conglomerate that holds pet insurance, real estate, right? Then I will hire somebody that can talk to these people and sell our process. Like, this is what we're going to do. We're going to generate traffic from various sources. We're going to make sure that they're qualified before we connect it to your sales team so you guys can close the sales. And depending on our involvement, I will probably negotiate a upfront and some type of rev share from the company. I wouldn't work with every single one. I'll try to work with big players, so because probably I wouldn't have the resources to capacity to handle that many accounts. But that's how we'll do it. I will probably concentrate in pet insurance. I think it's an underserved market in our industry. I don't think anybody's buying pet insurance phone calls, as far as I know.
I know a guy I could connect you.
Great. But you see, it's hard, right? I don't think a lot of people are buying those. I don't think
it's hard for a reason.
Yeah.
There's something about it that's difficult.
Yeah, I don't know why.
What it is. But.
Right? But definitely I will look into that. I will definitely look into that.
What about you?
High ticket fragmented markets that require a lot of work. So plastic surgeons, laser hair removal, purchasing real estate in other countries, cosmetic dentistry.
Because the clients were so much, you have more room to.
Yeah, and then I would run a qualifying call center, and I would work out a deal with them to pay per appointment and close. So I would want to rip per appointment, and then if they close it, I want a piece of the close so that they're taking it seriously. And then I would have the intermediary call center that's doing the qualification also have another team that's like follows up with the customer and is like, hey, your appointment's on Thursday. Just want to make sure that still works for you. I would not rely on the offices of the doctors or these service providers to do it. Yeah, I would do the follow-ups. I would have, SMS follow-ups, make sure they show up to the appointment, call them after the appointment, see if they have any questions like consultation services. I would call it like, I don't know, plastic surgeon, concierge, something much more cool than that, obviously. But, like these are extremely high margin purchases. And that's what I would look for is like businesses that have really high regulatory requirement and capital expenditures, like a plastic surgeon. You're a board certified plastic surgeon. You have to be a doctor. The cost of the anesthesiologist and all the facilities and all that is like millions and millions of dollars and 8 years of his life or whatever. And so like that guy's products are super high margin and he can do as many as you can send him. And so, I can get a much bigger percentage of that and they want the business, right? They're like, cool, yeah, sure. And no one's really tapping that market because it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And so I would have a third section of the call center that literally just called all of the plastic surgeons over and over again. It's like, hey, we want to send you customers. Here's your free customers. You know, like
It's like instead of like SMMA social media marketing agencies that were like a boom years ago, now you're like going 5 steps further and you're giving them a customer at a cost.
I'm selling the customer, yeah, and that would be, and I would work with pubs and whatever, any way possible, right? But I think that the hard part about what I'm just describing is the account management and the selling and the maintenance of hundreds, if not thousands, of locations. And so that's a really complex business challenge that I know I can do, which is a lot of work, and I love that because people won't do it. And then I would become like, I would own this market in the space.
Yep.
So my question would be, how do I own a market entirely that's super high margin, really hard to deal with, and make it easy for an affiliate that just wants to drive calls to sell me a call where I'm getting like 600% markup on it or something.
But not jump in and try to build what you built because it's
They can't.
Yeah.
It'll be difficult.
Yeah, you need to know how to do.
Yeah, correct.
We gotta go.
Carlos,
We gotta go.
thank you for joining me, my man. Adam, thanks for joining again.